United States of America,
and
and to the
republic
republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with
liberty,
liberty
and
and justice
justice
for all.
Play ball.
Okay, all right. So I welcome everybody, as I said, to this meeting, March 25th, 2021. Thanking all of you who have joined us. Hoping you are all safe and well. And with that, I will ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Weinick, second.
Okay.
Second.
Yeah, Mrs. Langsner. Any discussion about the minutes? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Okay, we're up to presentations. Dr. Dillon?
Yes, and we'd like to reverse the order and go first with item B, which is RSIP and Dr. Theodoro and her colleagues. So Carla, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the board. Good evening. The Department of Regional Schools and Instructional Programs is proud to focus on our wonderful career and technical education programs at the Gerald R. Claps Technical Education Center, otherwise known as GC Tech, located in Levittown. I'd like to introduce our principal, Pete Dalton.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see everyone. I would like to turn it over to really a great admin team at GC. Dr. Dunphy has done a tremendous job of creating and building a culture of excellence and a safe learning environment. Along with Miss Katrina O'Neill, together they have really done a fantastic job in moving GC Tech in the direction that we would like to see them move. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Dunphy.
Thank you, Pete, and thanks everyone for giving us a few minutes tonight to speak to you about a place that we love called Nassau BOCES GC Tech. So if you give
Who told you it was limited to 2 minutes?
Listen, as much time as you can give us, we'll take.
Go ahead.
And I mean it. Let me share my screen here. If you'll indulge me for a minute, I'm going to share my sound. I know Katrina was probably on the edge of her seat to make sure I did that right, but I think I did it right. So, so first, again, just thank you so much for giving us a few minutes to talk to you tonight. And we want to speak on specifically 4 different items that mean so much to our students, our teachers, and the community at large around and part of Nassau BOCES GC Tech. So those 4 items are our social emotional skills that we are such a big part of what we do each day for our students at GC. Professional development for our teachers, expanding programs in our building, and building relationships within our community. Specifically, we'd like to talk about our sending districts, which you can see here. We really have to, we'd be remiss if we didn't take a second just to acknowledge the partnership with Levittown and their support and how gracious of hosts that they have been for us, the custodial staff there, and really everything in between. It's really been a great partnership. We have 11 sending districts in total. 2 of them are noted here. Belmore, Merrick, and Great Neck are new to us this year in our 2nd year at GC. And we attribute that specifically to an initial pitch we made last year to really have a renaissance around EMT, emergency medical technician, and that program. And specifically, new students from those districts are actually enrolled in our police science EMT program. So we've correlated that strongly, and it's only given us that much more determination to see a robust program in EMT, see that through into the future. All of our programs are right here: automotive technology, computer animation, construction, electricity, cosmetology, as noted, police science and EMT, medical assisting, and we expect anticipated growth for next year in plumbing and HVAC, and a new home for that program at GC after the work done at Barry Tech has been so successful and made that program as popular as it is. We also want to note that, as I noted before, when it comes to EMT, we are looking to certify that program as a New York State approved CTE course. And as of course, what that will provide for our students is important career requisites in that industry, a tech endorsement, and of course, a pathway to graduation. So this year we've hosted 6 virtual open houses as recently as this week. Students have had an opportunity to meet with staff, interact with teachers about their programs. They've asked some great questions. We've come to understand a lot about potential new districts and of course our current sending districts through that, and then needs that they have and what we can do to meet those needs. 7 district high schools are showing new interest: Uniondale, Hempstead, Rockville Center, East Meadow, Glen Cove, Syosset, Roosevelt, Oyster Bay, in either completely new enrollment or over what the current enrollment is, which is very exciting. And we look forward to continuing to build those relationships and the existing ones that we have. So one of the things that we celebrated our virtual open houses is our commitment to social emotional learning. It's something that's very important. It's one of our principal values at GC, and it's you can feel it from end to end in that building. So one of our sort of mantras here, if you'll indulge me again, is, we believe in the importance of understanding ourselves and each other as a precursor to successful learning outcomes and student achievement. And we've seen this make a tremendous difference, particularly at a time when, there's a lot of challenges, from the outside that can potentially, shake some of the experiences that might exist there. We devote time and space to this on a regular basis, and our staff and students embrace being self-aware, having that balance, and understanding its importance as a part of the success. And of course, this is encouraged by all 28 staff members and all students in the building. With that, I would like to pass it over to GC Tech's program coordinator, Ms. Katrina O'Neill.
Thank you, Dr. Dunphy. So at Nassau BOCES GC Tech, we really strive to understand both ourselves and each other. And we've implemented initiatives like Mindful Monday, regular Wednesday SEL activities, and a SEL monthly check-in. And these have become installments that are important ways for our students to reflect, self-regulate, and self-advocate. This has become very central to our values and culture at GC Tech because it's translated into building school harmony. One such organization and club that we brought to our school this year, and we're striving to be a No Place for Hate school, is No Place for Hate. And this is an anti-defamation league education program where all stakeholders, from students, teachers, staff members, and administration, really take the lead on improving and maintaining school climate. And we have our students, they pledge against hate in our school, and they continue to ask others to join them. So what I'd like to do is invite everyone to listen to the pledge that our students took to promote harmony in our school.
My name is Dylan Wyman. I'm a member of No Place for Hate. I take medical assisting here at GC Tech.
Hi, my name is Isabella Trauma. I am a computer animation student here at GC Tech and a member of No Place for Hate.
Hi, I'm Michael Gonzalez and I'm a student here at GC Tech, and I currently take automotive, pursuing my career, and I'm also a part of No Place for Hate.
Hi, my name is Ashley Keene. I'm part of the cosmetology program here at GC Tech, and I'm also a member of No Place for Hate.
I'm Anthony Battaglia. I'm part of the automotive program at GC Tech, and I'm part of No Place for Hate.
My name is Brian DeRoya. I'm part of the police science program, and I'm also a part of No Place for Hate.
Join us in pledging against hate at GC Tech.
I will seek out to gain understanding of those who are different from myself.
I will speak out against prejudice and discrimination.
I will reach out to support those who are targets of hate.
I will promote respect for people and help foster a prejudice-free school.
I believe that one person can make a difference. No one is an innocent bystander when it comes to opposing hate.
I recognize that respecting individual dignity and promoting intergroup harmony are the responsibilities of all students.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join
us.
So our students not only took this pledge, but they promote this promise by planning and participating in No Place for Hate learning activities. 2 activities we ran this year was when our students partnered with Long Island Cares, and they brought awareness to food insecurity on Long Island. Second activity was a focus on using inclusive language and highlighting the importance of referring to each other the way we all personally want to. Students had some really deep conversations specific to the LGBTQ community and some of the challenges they face in this area. So next, I just want to focus on, looking back at September as we transition back into the classroom. There was a lot of nervousness, uneasiness that many of our students were feeling this past September. So, when we came back into the building, we really wanted to ensure that we had an accurate pulse of the building, especially in these uncertain times. So we decided that each month we would provide students with a formal opportunity to put self-reflection into practice in the form of what we call a check-in. So the goal of this check-in was to help us identify any barriers to student success and to let us know where students might need additional support and where we can make adjustments in providing that. So if you notice back in October, there was quite a bit of nervousness amongst our students, but as time went on, we noticed fewer calls for support, and these monthly check-ins really allowed us to make those adjustments and to pull students in, to have conversations and to give them that additional support. So, we say that we devote time, but we also devote space. So this slide here is just showing you what our Zen Den looks like. This slide it really showcases this beautiful space that students seek out whenever they need a time for self-reflection or a place to self-regulate. Sometimes students, they may not be ready to talk or to take the first steps in confronting something that they're battling with. So we welcome our students to turn to this space for self-reflection until they're ready to turn to a staff member. The Zen Den has been a vital tool as we work to always de-escalate situations to ensure successful learning outcomes for our students. These themes, the themes of our SEL goals, they're not meant to regulate, but rather to empower students to seek support and have personal ownership over their success. Looking back on last year, by the end of February 2020, there were 12 incidences at GC Tech that resulted in a suspension. As of March 2021 this year, there are 2 similar instances. So this student empowerment, it's allowed us not only to succeed in the classroom, but even in the times where we've had to shift to remote. So on that note, I'm going to pass it back to Dr. Dunphy, where he can highlight some of our experiences as we've had, in times have to shift to remote learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Neill. So yes, on the very rare occasions, thankfully, when we have had to pivot to remote learning, when students have been quarantined, which has happened more frequently, we know for everyone, GC Tech teachers across our building have risen to the occasion, the whole team, and students, absolutely. Teachers have live streamed their instruction synchronously, and whether we've been remote or not, we've had incredible return on some of the platforms that we've been using on a regular basis. So 94% of our students are using Microsoft Teams each day, whether remote or in person. So this has become a part of what we do regardless. Close to 90% of our students are using Remind as a way to connect with us, even when they're not there, or for other items that might happen as a result of instruction and things like that. So all teachers recently also were set up with Nearpod accounts. Now Nearpod can do a lot of different things, but really 2 things come to mind at GC Tech that really that's kind of caught our eye and caught our attention as a team at GC, which is the use of it for formative assessment. Again, it's a powerful tool remotely in that way when we're not right there and are able to look at where a student is to the extent of, whatever the extent of a student's understanding is with a certain assignment or activity. It allows us to do that, but also to build community and feel like you're there, feel like you're a part of the team. And when we desperately want to make that happen when it's not available to us because of something out in the world that might be happening. So Tech Tuesday is a professional development series that we put into practice this year. And each week teachers meet, we go over certain items that might have come up. Call it Tech Tuesday because generally the theme of these meetings is around technology and some new platforms such as Nearpod or whatever it might be. And the shift right now, the focus has really been around Nearpod. And of course, in response to any type of new platform, software, whatever it might be, some new tool, we want to respond, and we know we need to with support for our teachers. So when adding any new platform, any new item, we've always ensured alignment with our instructional focus. And over the past year and a half or so, more than that, I suppose now, we've been working to establish such an instructional focus. So at a recent faculty meeting, we challenge ourselves to look at and describe what learning looks like in our classrooms. And I want to highlight among a lot of good responses that we got, Laura Lee Kelly, our fantastic special education teacher at GC, said, sometimes a student will not grasp a concept right away, but there is value in the pursuit. And the idea is, well, what's the pursuit, right? So we've recognized that there's a genuine challenge to learning and that this is not only okay, but perhaps should be encouraged and of course supported. So once this became common language, we started to see it be increasingly visible in our building. And we started to do a lot of work around authentic audience, which is a part of authentic learning and is so visible and so important in a career in tech ed environment. So to put it simply, authentic audience is when a student shares their learning with someone new. Okay. And specifically when a student shares the choices they make and the decisions they made around the work they're doing, a project, an assignment, and they're proud of that. And maybe they're going to be, questioned, to a degree they weren't ready for, and that's okay too. And we're going to support them in doing that and coach them to a point where they can handle the next thing and they're excited about it. And that's what we're trying to get them to do. GC Tech as a team has made that visible. And we'll continue to visualize that as we work towards the next leg of that journey. So we love showcasing that work. One way we've done that is through social media. We make very good use of our Facebook, our Instagram accounts, our website. Of course, these are always a work in progress, as they should be. We love to highlight the fact that our Instagram in particular, since we've been Nassau BOCES GC Tech, is up around 600% in terms of the amount of followers that we had since we became Nassau BOCES GC Tech. One of the things we noticed is in looking at after we had posted things and likes and comments and things like that, was that most of that our alumni seemed to be the first to routinely like and comment. So we started scratching our heads and we're thinking about all this type of stuff. And in our site-based team, we had been looking at the creation of an alumni association anyway. And we said, well, we have a really powerful group here. Let's find out just how much, just how many alumni there are here in the community already. And one specific anecdote that I'll share is that Katrina and I were out at dismissal at one point, and we saw parents there to pick up their child. And we engaged them in a little conversation, and we learned that both parents actually went to GC Tech in different years. They didn't meet there, but it was very exciting to speak to both of them about their experiences and the history of GC Tech and how proud they were of the community and the building, and how happy they were with their son's experience in auto technology. So we started to do some cultivation of data around that, and we learned that 37 current GC Tech students have a family member who graduated from GC Tech. Bottom line is, we know how important it is to build relationships with the alumni in this case, with our industry partners, with districts, and what it means to really, as a way to provide insight and opportunity to our current students, and how powerful that can be to our programs and what it does for them. So we're in the process through our site-based team of gathering testimonials from our alumni, find out what they're doing now and how GC Tech might have been a part of that. So the bottom line is this, whether it's our alumni, whether it's the 28 staff members I know I speak for Katrina too, when I say we are so proud to be part of the team at GC Tech, and all of our students being part of that extended family, and all of you, of course. We work with full confidence in each other each day. We're proud of each other. We believe in each other's success. And that's really what makes our students and our team successful each day. And that's what we wanted to share with you tonight. So we really appreciate the opportunity to have a few minutes to speak on this.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments from the board? Mrs. Coates.
So, Dr. Dumpy, it's wonderful to see how much the program at GC Tech has expanded. You guys have done a wonderful job just promoting the program and the enrollment of students. Do you feel, and maybe Katrina would be better at answering this, do you feel that this, what we've lived through over the last year, this pandemic, has affected the children? Because they're at a tough age, the teenage years, have affected them with the mental issues, and have they used the Zen-Den more? Do you feel that maybe the drop in suspensions is because there either is more tolerance for each other, or are they just, not really in participating in the program on, other than remotely? But I just was curious about that.
Yeah, well, I'll start, and Katrina, feel free to jump in. But I think I can't say enough about the resilience of our students. We've seen, I think it might make a difference to speak to a specific. We had a planned week remote right after Thanksgiving, and we went around. Katrina and I, we went around to each class, and we wanted to prepare them for that week. There's so much that you can't prepare for, right? We come to work and there's a COVID case. We weren't expecting it, but unfortunately we've gotten used to it a little bit, right? But I think the feeling that I got, and Katrina can share as well, that when we went around to each classroom, the more and more students were getting used to it, but I think that they felt a certain calmness. I think there was a certain blood pressure that went down a little bit in us preparing for it than when it is abrupt that way. We've noticed that the engagement and just the attendance is better remotely when there was a planned event like that. Now, that's a challenge in and of itself, and it's not easy to plan for any of this right now. But I can speak to that as a great example. But I also point to our school social worker and our school psychologist as of tremendous value, but tremendous assets to this particular part of what you're asking about. Because I don't know that if not for them and the outreach they do on a regular basis and being proactive about students, and with specifically students with special needs who might be more prone to the anxiety around being remote, I think that's made all the difference. But certainly there has been those challenges.
Also, to add to that is, the students learning at home, especially with the CTE setting, it's not meant to be. What we do in the classroom is hands-on. And I think, in the rare cases when they've had to shift to remote, or a positive case here, or you've been identified as a close contact here, the students want to be back in the classroom. And I think that these situations in this past year has really opened, their eyes, their hearts, their minds up to what it means to really value being in school and learning with a teacher. And it's incredible, how they strive to just get right back into the classroom. And there's a lot that's gone into making sure that once they're there, they're comfortable, they're safe, and that they know that they have the support staff that they need.
That's great to know. Thank you.
Mrs. Langsner, and then Mr. Greenstein.
So I love the idea of the Alumni Association. One thing that I always thought would be a valuable resource for the world, but certainly for Nassau County residents, is to know where our students have landed and where are they practicing their trades, where do they work, so that we could know that if we need that particular work done for us, whatever it might be, that we could reach out with confidence, knowing that someone has been trained by Nassau BOCES. So if in that directory there was any way of identifying if people were willing to share where they're working now, I would love to see that, because I would love to hire those people, individually if I could.
Yeah, we're after the same goal, and we're excited about sharing what we find this year. We're almost ready to go live with a survey that will capture that information, and that's only a part of the mission. What you're describing is the more valuable part, right? What we're doing now with that information. And, we're excited about it. We shouldn't just be stumbling upon these parents who went there in the parking lot. We want to, know that they're there and go say, hi, what are you doing right now? So I know we both agree with that.
Mr. Greenstein?
Yeah, this was really fascinating. It's great to know that there are at least some students who get out of school knowing how to do something. Two questions. A quick one is, how many students do you have at GC Tech?
It's 228 students as of today.
Well, that's great. The other thing is, when you're talking about the suspensions, I have a little different question than Mrs. Coates had. As you as adults are doing the work to move this along, is some of this the result of the way you interact with the students, not letting things escalate as much? Is it sort of coming from both sides? The students are behaving better, but also their interactions with the staff, as the staff becomes better attuned to them, that there's a little less of that also?
Well, listen, are there different variables? Absolutely. I think that's absolutely the case. I think that we have a team that is already very tolerant and proactive about and have a knowledge of each of our students. You can feel, the main office at GC Tech is such that you can really feel sort of the heartbeat of that building. So if there's something that just doesn't, Katrina and I greet every student each morning, and then for our PM session as well. You can get a sense with that volume of students, especially just what kind of day some of these kids are having. And we're able to follow up immediately with that. So I wouldn't discount, that part of it. I think you're absolutely right. I think we have a certain attention to these things. We try to be as proactive as possible. So when, and we also know each other's strengths very well. So if, we know if a certain student comes in, they may have a certain rapport or relationship with a certain staff member. And that's how we're approaching that. We try to take each student, under our wing in a different way. It's not necessarily going to be, a traditional path to, the social worker necessarily, if we happen to know that this student has a better relationship with the guidance counselor, and vice versa. Of course, all of those things appropriately will find its way, to its rightful place. But ultimately, every case is a team effort. We all know what's happening at every moment. It's really a pretty special thing. But of course, there's other variables, but we feel the most notable and the most important is the work we've done around SEL and being proactive. Listen, Mindful Mondays is a school-wide, and Wednesday check-ins are school-wide initiatives. I've worked in 4 different schools in my almost 16 years. I've never been part of something like that where every staff member buys in, students buy in, and over the PA, we are, starting our day on Monday, starting our week with the students' ability to clear their space and clear their mind and get ready for what they're, get ready for their learning. that means something. And I'm trying to paint that picture of, that environment, because that I think is what translates the most into those numbers.
Right. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, basically what you're doing is you're building relationships, and relationships are two-way. So, so it does work on each other, and whatever you're doing, it's great. I mean, it's working. I was just sort of curious as to, the interaction, but you've pretty much explained that away very well. So thank you.
You're always welcome. Just wear a mask. That's all.
Mr. Schultz? And then Mr. K.
I'm fine.
Okay, Mr. K?
Yes, just as a general observation, the Long Island workforce has always looked upon the VOTEC programs at Nassau BOCES as being very, very good in terms of preparation. And getting GC Tech online, as we have, I think is a real feather in the cap to our agency, as well as our superintendent, who initiated at least the contact that started the ball rolling. In the automotive program, which is a very fine program, I know we've enhanced the diesel component now that's being studied at GC Tech. Is that correct?
Well, I think that there's some work that's been done at Barry Tech, but I will say that we just brought on a new teacher at GC Tech who has a background in diesel, and that is something that we are looking to explore because he has that skill set. That's such, and you're right, that is very important.
But just as an observation, Patrick, diesel is important as a second component, but also a crying need on Long Island is knowledge of the diverse fuels and the biotechnology involved in alternate sources of energy for cars. Stations and dealerships are really crying out for people, young people, who come into their station and if they have a knowledge of that particular component, it is so important. So if you have a unit or some kind of approach to perhaps even exploring that as a little bit of a side study, I think it would be important as part of the automotive training that we give our students.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And there's, absolutely, I think the world is calling for it. I think you're absolutely right. Our community is calling for it, and it's worth more frequent looks at what we can do to enhance it, of course.
Thank you.
Any other comments? If not, other than for my saying, from my perspective, you have done a monumental job in a very short period of time. So we are so appreciative, and your enthusiasm is catching, it's oozing out of your pores. So we do thank you for bringing this program along. It really is quite amazing and appreciated. So with that, Dr. Dillon.
Well, I just want to echo, great job. And such, as you said, Susan, in such a short period of time, they've developed a cohesive team that is really, really moving forward. Unfortunately, we had the pandemic, and they still have been able to rise above it during the pandemic, and we look for some great things in the future to continued success. Thank both of you, and thank your staffs for all their dedication and hard work. Okay, now we have, you may want to get a beverage, a cup of coffee or something, because the next one is an outstanding group effort by many, many of our agency's employees in the strategic planning. And they've all done outstanding work. There are several committees, and you'll have a chance to hear from them. They too are very passionate. They're doing some very important work. And I will say part of this work came out of the crisis that we've been in. And as they said, never waste a crisis. We've looked at it not as a crisis, but as a challenge. And having said that, I'd like to turn it over to Angela to talk about the strategic planning. Angela.
Thank you. And he's right, settle in. We've been busy. Earlier this year, we shared this year's 6 major initiatives with the board. Since that time, we've created a subcommittee for each of those major initiatives. We felt they were so important that we had to put a group together to really just focus on them. So the subcommittees are made up from staff throughout the agency. There are different levels of staff involved. Some of the groups are much larger than others based on the complexity of the initiative that they're working on. And a representative from each of the 6 original subcommittees are going to briefly share their progress and where they're putting their focus going forward this evening. Based on the research of our Exploring the Future of Remote Work subcommittee, we've determined the need for another committee to focus specifically on building capacity through digital training. And that committee will be led by Matt DeMena, who has joined us on the screen. His work will start in April, and we've already recruited the members for his committee. So Matt won't be presenting tonight, but he did join us in solidarity for the other 6 presenters. The subcommittee leading through a time of crisis is going to go first. That committee is chaired by Dr. France, but tonight's presentation will be made by Tony Fierro. Tony, take it away.
Thank you and good evening. Our committee is titled Leading Through a Time of Crisis, and I'd like to first recognize our committee members. Our committee chair is Dr. R.G. France. Along with myself, our committee members include James Widmer, Joanna Malamant, Meter Pratt, Dawn Bauman, Vincent LaRusso, Tom Roccanova. Also, we have Judy Hines, Ken Krug, and Cliff Steinberg. So one of the initial objectives for our committee was to create a mission statement. So I'll start by sharing our mission. The Leading Through a Time of Crisis committee mission is to support the Nassau BOCES strategic plan's goal of investing in our employees with a focus on our leaders. We strive to create leadership opportunities to strengthen our interdependent culture, which comprises collective beliefs, practices, patterns, and behaviors through and beyond times of crisis. So our committee strongly believes that it's important not only to develop leadership strategies addressing the current pandemic, but to also be prepared to effectively lead should another crisis present itself. So I'd like to briefly focus on several specific objectives that the committee has been working on. First, we've been examining 3 types of organizational leadership cultures, and they are a dependent culture, an independent culture, and an interdependent culture. So a dependent culture operates with the belief that people in authority are responsible for leadership. This is more of a top-down approach and a compliance type of a culture. An independent culture operates with the belief that leadership emerges out of individual expertise. And this culture speaks more to a point person who could be working within a group setting. An interdependent culture operates with the belief that leadership is a collective activity to benefit the organization as a whole. And this is a culture that we're looking to for our agency leaders. Next, I'll review 4 strategies that we've developed to move the work of the committee forward within the agency. The first 3 strategies are already in place. So strategy 1 is to meet on a monthly basis to develop and monitor annual measurable strategies focusing on strengthening Nassau BOCES leaders and leadership practices. In our meetings, we've been discussing our core values, which are integrity, respect, and excellence. And we're also incorporating 5 key leadership traits and best practices. And they are collaboration, which includes building relationships, creating a vision to solve problems and handling conflict. Communication, which involves presenting to target audiences, listening, conversing, and providing feedback. Compassion, which includes encouraging employees to talk about their problems, being sensitive and supportive. Customer service, which includes providing professional support, learning resources, and workshops for our customers, our educators, and our staff. And finally, core business, which incorporates developing specific department services and systems that enable the agency to conduct our business through the crisis. So strategy 2 is to disseminate weekly Leading Through a Time of Crisis tips through our Office of Information that offer practical, research-based advice to strengthen our Nassau BOCES leaders and our leadership practices. Strategy 3 is to facilitate several thought exchange forums. And these forums are designed to identify the agency's current leadership culture, identify elements of the leadership culture that are working, identify ways to foster a more interdependent culture of leadership, And finally, identify obstacles preventing Nassau BOCES from achieving an interdependent culture. Strategy 4 is currently in the planning stages, and that is to conduct monthly networking forums where agency leaders with different positions, skills, and perspectives can gather to develop collective leadership practices that we can use to nurture an interdependent culture. So that's a summary of our committee's efforts to date. We believe that in many respects, the work of this committee directly impacts and is interrelated to the work of all of the committees presenting tonight. And we're looking forward to working to further developing and expanding these leadership opportunities and strategies throughout the agency. So I thank you for the opportunity to present the work of our committee. Thank you very much.
Are there any I'm sorry, go ahead, Susan.
And I was going to say the same thing. Any questions from the board? Seeing none. Dr. Dillon.
Okay, Angela, you had something to add to that?
Oh, just to let you know that after we will have a print version of what they're telling you tonight available at some point soon. The next presenter is Pam Christensen with the Future of Remote Work Subcommittee.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for the time to speak about the committee exploring the future of remote work here at Nassau BOCES. The objective of this committee is to explore the feasibility, parameters, and implications of having some or all of our employees work remotely. We've met regularly since the inception of the committee with 2 subcommittees established for the first few months. One of those subcommittees was to address matters we identified that are specific to instructional remote work success. The other was to address matters specific to administrative remote work success. Meetings were held weekly, with full meetings alternating weeks with subcommittee meetings. We've since come back together to work weekly as a full committee. In addition to productive and healthy discussion, the committee has reviewed subject-related materials from multiple sources outside of our agency. The committee members have a strong commitment to this work, and I'm very grateful for their enthusiastic participation. To date, we've arrived at a set of conclusions, some of which I will share with you tonight. First, the balance of committee time for the current year will be devoted to developing recommendations for remote work for the instructional and administrative groups to be used for emergency scenarios. For this purpose, emergency is defined as an agency-wide or building-wide event which prompts the need for employees to work remotely. These recommendations will include such topics as communication approaches, meeting platforms, instructional platforms, necessary equipment and connectivity, training elements, et cetera, et cetera. Secondly, we've concluded that except in an emergency scenario, a full-time remote work model for all employees isn't a viable solution for either our instructional or administrative departments. And finally, we've determined that in a non-emergency environment, there are 2 remaining potential remote work models worthy of future detailed exploration. The first is a flexible as-needed remote work model, which may be advantageous for some employees of both administrative and instructional programs. Under this flexible structure, an employee would spend most of the time in the office, but be permitted to apply to work remotely on a specific approved day or set of days. The other is a fixed hybrid or split session remote work model that may be advantageous for some employees of the administrative programs. In this scenario, one group of employees would spend a specific set of 2 to 3 days in the office, alternating with another group in the office on the other 2 to 3 days. Seat space would be shared by 2 to 3 employees on alternating days, thus reducing the total amount of physical space required in the agency. The committee is thoughtfully considering the requirements for success, as well as the pros and cons for each of these approaches. In the interest of time, I won't go through those items tonight, but certainly that information will be included in conjunction with any future recommendations on this topic. There are some key items of particular concern to the committee members, which I'd like to mention in closing. This is certainly not a complete list of considerations, but an indication of the current primary ones. First, what are the benefits to the agency, districts, and students of any approach we're evaluating? Secondly, how will our customers perceive a move toward remote work? Our taxpayers, our internal departments, and of course, our component districts. We need to make a differentiation between what can be done remotely and what should be done remotely. Just because it can be done remotely doesn't necessarily mean it should be. And if we do go forward with some version of remote work, there's a need for highly effective communication methodologies and expectations. A clear, well-defined decision-making structure for determining what employees qualify for remote work must be established. It's a complicated task to decide who may work remotely and who may not, and all parties must understand the elements of that decision-making. This is a dense and complex undertaking for which we will continue our exploration and look forward to preparing structured recommendations. In closing, I'd like to thank the committee members once again, including Dr. Dillon, Chris Reinertsen, Susan McNulty, Marcia Barnett, Cliff Steinberg, Selma Stoddard, Matt Witchaby, Jean Gribbins, Marianne Sidoti, Kelly Piazza, Sandeep Dillon, Angela Marshall, Lori Gross, TJ Michon, Monica Savino, Marion Fine, and Sue Cohen. And contrary to what that list might suggest, there are some other very fine people on the other committees. But in any case, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Pam.
And Mrs. Coates, question or a comment? Mrs.
Yeah,
Coates.
probably. Pam, you said it when you said complicated task. I can't imagine how that must be for you to try to figure out how you would either come up with a hybrid model of remote working or I just don't, I just commend your committee thinking that you guys probably have a really tough task ahead of you trying to figure out what this is going to entail, because I know from people, family and friends who are now working remotely, how they feel, and yet we all know that having a cup of coffee in the coffee room with your fellow coworkers is always a great way of exchanging ideas and things like that. But I appreciate that Nassau BOCES is taking this on and is working on this topic as a committee, and along with all of the others, of course.
Thank you. You're quite right. The number of elements that have to be considered as we're looking at how to approach this is quite remarkable. But it's fascinating work. It really is.
Sure. Okay.
Anybody else? Seeing no one else, Angela?
Thank you. Next is Dr. Theodora with our Leveling the Playing Field for All Students subgroup.
Good evening. I would like to thank the board for the opportunity to share our committee's work on leveling the playing field, and to thank our committee members, Kathleen Bulfin-Rella, Peter Dalton, Dr. Patrick Dunphy, Thomas Rakanova, Dr. Christine Rogutsky, Teresa Schaefer-Bell, and Don Brosnan. Our committee members met several times over the fall and winter since we began this process, and we discussed a wide range of topics. We were all over the place with many ideas about how to level the playing field for our students. We were able to identify 3 key challenges to leveling the playing field that we felt were the most important and warranted further research. The first key challenge we discussed is supporting digital equity and making sure that both Nassau BOCES students have all equitable access to technology, bandwidth, and access to quality remote instruction, especially now in the time of COVID-19. Many families do not have adequate bandwidth. Not all families have the technical skills to support their students at home. Some of our most vulnerable students are nonverbal or unable to use technology. How do we support their needs? How do we help the kids catch up if they suffer from digital inequity and fall behind? Many big questions for us to further study. Our second challenge that we focused on was breaking down language barriers for our students and improving access to translators and program materials for parents and teachers in Spanish and other prevalent languages in our community. Many of these challenges are more prevalent in our full-day special education programs, but they also impact CTE and adult education to some degree. While BOCES has good translation services, available, funding for that is not unlimited for all the schools and all the districts. We do not have enough interpreters for family communication, and many times students serve as interpreters for their own families. Many special education children cannot translate for their parents in cases where parents need an interpreter. Many children with language barriers sit through classes taught in English, which they don't fully understand, and then listen to an interpreter. It's almost like taking a second translated class. We also believe that the barriers to access are not limited to the classroom. We frequently have callers to our central offices who don't speak English as a first language and need a translator, and our agency doesn't have a large number of bilingual staff. Again, lots of big challenges to focus on. Our third challenge was making sure that our programs and teachers are prepared to serve students of different cultural backgrounds, different learning styles and abilities. It's important that our teachers and staff receive training to support students' social emotional learning and academic needs. As we heard from many committees and from earlier presentation for GC Tech, mental health support is more important than ever, and we need to focus on our students as well as our staff. Not all staff think they need to know more about cultural diversity, and that's something we should focus on. Nassau BOCES also has many professional learning opportunities through CIT and My Learning Plan, but a big challenge for our program leaders is finding the time in the busy day and week and year to have that professional learning opportunity available to their staff. We believe that the need for cultural literacy extends to all of our staff and not just our teachers. These were all big ideas, and we realize we need to do a lot more research and consider this year almost a needs assessment year. But in conclusion, as we listened to our other committees, we saw that there were many parallels to the work of our committee to those committees. And we want to continue to explore the topics, hopefully to develop very specific and concrete goals for the agency to address the key areas that we've discussed. Thank you for the opportunity and have a good evening.
Thank you. Any
Thank you, Carla.
questions, comments? Mr. Shields.
I guess my question was a little bit, Carly, you just sort of touched on it at the end, that what happens, who's watching out, and when do you start to determine when these responsibilities of committees start to bleed into one another? And at some point, is there going to be an interim kind of report to the board and the superintendent, or a final report at some point? Do you have a schedule at this point?
Eric, I don't think we have a schedule. Again, this was a work. These are works in progress, and as a result of what happened during the pandemic, they will bleed into each other. I don't think there's anything. Personally, I'm not a fan of silos, and I think there's interconnectivity with particular challenges. And I see us again. I don't see there's any finality to it. I think they will grow and expand, and I think we have to adjust according to what the environment is. So I think there'll probably be periodic updates of where we are on certain situations. I think that's probably, in my opinion, the best way to go. We have a lot of human capital invested. Excuse me. Thank you. We have a tremendous amount of capital from the agency invested in these discussions. It has a wide sweep of the entire agency, including our labor leaders who have joined us in again taking a look at the agency and doing some reflection on where we are and what we're doing. So again, I think this should be, in my opinion, ongoing.
Well, I understand that. But what you just said leads me to come back to, at least myself, and I'm sure other members of the board, would like to see something tangible in where you are, what kind of issues you've, I don't want to use the word uncover, what kind of issues have presented themselves, what kind of solutions you're dealing with. I'm not happy with just periodic updates. I want to see.
Well, let's say it differently then. I think what we're looking for are
capital.
Yeah, we have what you're looking for, in my opinion, is our measurable objectives. And I think, Carla said it, in my opinion, the best. This is first like a needs assessment of where we are. And I said, as a result of that, we're going to have to come up with some objectives. Each of the committees will come up with some measurable objectives. And then over time, we come back and say, have we met these objectives? Why were they easily met? Can we challenge ourselves? I think this whole exercise here has been a challenge. I can't think of ever before, I know in the 5 years I've been here, that we've stretched ourselves in this capacity.
Yeah,
I understand. One second. I understand that. And I think as you go along, the board would appreciate, and I'm sort of putting myself out there on behalf of my colleagues, at least written kind of updates when you see needs. What are the needs assessments? Then what are your goals? We need to be involved.
Measurable objectives. I agree with you.
Right. Yes, and
Otherwise it's fluff. I'm sorry, Angela.
That's okay. There'll be a report very soon with what we're sharing with you tonight, a written document that we'll share with you very soon. We had to get to this point where all the groups were sort of at this point where they've done a lot of needs assessment already. So now they know better where they're going. So we'll get that to you very soon, and we will update you as we go along. One thing that I didn't mention during the intro is, so these individual groups are meeting by themselves, but then once a month, we all come together to meet as one big group, and two of the groups at each of those meetings present their findings and get feedback from the larger group. And so that's how we're as we present and we get this additional information from each other, that's where we're seeing these ties, that all the groups are tied together in some way, shape, or form. So there is a lot of synergy happening with these groups, and I think we'll be able to eliminate any overlap as we go along. So Carla, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I didn't want people to think that when we talk about this year being a needs assessment year, that a lot of work didn't happen. What happened in our committees was that we had a range of people from different departments working together and having conversations about many issues. And as a result, we actually had built several actionable items. So we shared information between CIT, special education. We've had principals meetings in both special education and RSIP to spread information to our principals about language translation services. Don Brosnan wasn't an original member of our committee. As we spoke about the different issues, we realized, let's tap into some of the resources we have here at Nassau BOCES. We invited him to be part of the committee, and we started coming up with smaller action items that all of us as program leaders, executive directors, and principals could do. So the work has begun. It's not, we're just talking in theory about things and we're not doing anything. What we're thinking is that these are bigger picture items. We can all address at the ground level some small parts of it, but as an agency, I think it's important for us to do the bigger needs assessment, to think about ways that the entire agency can address the problem. So I agree with you, Mr. Schultz, that we have to come up with something tangible and concrete, but I'm also saying that some of that work is already starting at the ground level through the work.
I appreciate that, and I know that it's been started. We just heard, but we have no idea what it is, what you're finding. It's the old saying that people have solutions to problems, and then they try to find out whether there's a problem. That's endemic in just about every organization I've seen. So, I think at least I want to see something that says, here's where we're going, here's what we're doing. I think that's the least that we're entitled to as a board.
Absolutely. We all agree.
Any other? You can take it away, Angela, since it doesn't look like there's anybody else. So continue, please.
Great. I'd now like to introduce Dr. DeGuano to speak about the subcommittee improving hiring outcomes. Dr. DeGuano.
Evening. Thank you very much for the opportunity to discuss our committee's work. We could be like the odd duck committee. Our committee consisted of Dr. Roxanne France, Yvette Allen Campbell, Barbara Longo, Charlie Corello, Kyle Human, Kelly Piazza, and Liz Calabrese. The hiring process committee had a dual objective. First, we spent a lot of time carefully evaluating the hiring processes of both certified and classified staff, The Human Resource Department is caught between two very major bureaucracies, that of Civil Service and the State Education Department. However, we determined that we can make progress and move forward by working closely with Civil Service to effect change where possible, and working with our departments to make sure we're hiring the right talent and titles. Moving forward, we're looking at 4 hiring outcomes. These include jobs, and within the jobs, we're looking at job analysis, criteria, and groups. We will be looking at it. The selection tools, we're going to look at assessment, fit, and interviews. Outcomes, we want to take a look at turnover, diversity, which may overlap one of the other committees slightly, and performance, and then data, and take a look at ratings. We look forward to bringing you information about our future progress in the hiring outcome area. Thank you very much.
Fran?
I was just wondering, do you think that the possibility of embracing a hybrid model of work would expand the catchment area from which we can hire? Might there be people out there who live further out than would typically want to come to work in person every day at a location in Nassau County, but the option of not having to be there every day might make it possible to hire people who live geographically further away?
That's a possibility, but when we're looking at classified staff, we are still restricted because of Civil Service. They still have to live in Nassau County. So unless they're on the outskirts, unless they're in Valley Stream and they're in Syosset and they're like in the corners of Nassau County, we still have to hire within Nassau County. So we're still restricted in that area. And as for certified staff, those would be either our administrators or our teachers. So if our students are in person, we would want our teachers to be in person. So that's, and we can't not hire somebody who's certified. So that's where I said we're stuck between the State Education Department, where we have the Office of Teaching Initiatives, which says you have to have somebody certified in the classroom.
Right. Oh, well.
If I may, I think Dr. DeGuano's points are very well taken, but I also think, Mrs. Langsner, that you're on to something, because there's an element of not only proximity, but a very good likelihood that in order for us to remain competitive for certain kinds of talent, if the work world goes the way it looks like it's going to, with a significant percentage working remotely even after this is over, please let that be soon, then in order to be competitive, it is likely that we will have to at least give strong consideration to the risk benefit of a remote work arrangement.
Yeah, and Fran, I'd also like to add, we're hoping that civil service enters the 21st century pretty soon with an understanding that there should be the capacity to have no borders anymore. You know, with technology, and right now we have restrictions, but I know state ed, we've discussed it at district superintendents meetings that, you know, you can have a much richer curriculum by bringing in the brightest and best from anywhere in the world to provide instruction. But we're limited right now by some education law, by some restrictions. And, you know, New York is a very litigious state and we're very unionized. But somewhere along the line, there has to be a meeting of the minds. I think it'll come, hopefully sooner rather than later.
We shall see.
Any other comments? Okay, Angela?
Great. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Nicolino, who is going to speak about the work of our subcommittee on leading with a social conscience.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to share with you the great work of the Social Conscious Group. We are a small but mighty group consisting of Mrs. Judy Hines, Ms. Chandrika Langley-Gray, and myself. Our goal is to establish an open and welcoming culture that can identify and eliminate a systemic bias that may exist within Nassau BOCES, and to operationalize our learning to provide leadership and learning on culturally and socially relevant professional development courses, policies, and practices. It is our objective to have Nassau BOCES staff participate in thought exchanges and webinars that focus on working well with diverse individuals and to encourage a greater understanding and acceptance of the views and perspectives of all stakeholders within the agency. The committee has taken steps to educate themselves through available webinars and courses, such as the Adelphi University Certificate Program on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. We've also conducted 2 thought exchanges and have begun working on a 4-year plan on diversity, equity, and inclusion for the agency. Our latest thought exchange yielded some great information. We asked our employees, what are some of the topics around diversity, equity, and inclusion that you would like to see in group webinar sessions and why? 231 employees participated. 128 thoughts were shared. Close to 3,000 ratings were given on those thoughts. We asked how our employees would rate their own knowledge of comfort, their own knowledge and comfort with diversity, equity, and inclusion. 42% feel very confident and comfortable, while 31% have a good understanding. That's a majority of our staff. 15% have gaps in their knowledge, and 12% of the respondents believe this is all new to them as an employee. We then asked, do you have any stories you would be willing to share? 16% said yes, 43% said no, and 41% are unsure. What emerged from the thought exchange were 3 themes that our employees want to know more about. Socioeconomic issues for poverty-stricken students and families was number 1. Benefits of diversity was 2nd. Understanding different cultures was 3rd. We look forward to sharing more of these results with you in the future, and thank you again for the opportunity to present our work to you. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions? Thoughts? Okay, Angela?
Great. We have one final subcommittee to report. It's the subcommittee committed to keeping mental health at the forefront. The chair of that committee is Laverne Mitchell. Tonight, you will be hearing from Audra Madura. Audra.
Good evening. The Mental Health and Wellness Subcommittee was charged with keeping mental health in the forefront. Committee members include Laverne Mitchell, our chair, Ken Krug, Beverly Forgash, Kelly Fenley, Christine Fleming, Jeffrey Diebold, Linda Mance before she retired, and myself, Audrey Madura. Our key objectives were to provide tools and resources for Nassau BOCES staff, to provide professional development and other resources to districts, connect students and parents with resources to promote wellness, and raise awareness and reduce stigma around mental health. Our action plan was to find ways to communicate as many mental health and wellness resources to staff, parents, and students as possible, and stress how important mental health and well-being is to all of us. Our committee has been meeting weekly. At first, our work was centered around planning for the reopening of school, and we created a presentation for Superintendent's Conference Day in September that mostly focused on stress management, grief and loss, the need for self-care, and the importance of socialization and ideas of how to be social while still being distant. We also asked the agency staff to participate in a thought exchange. We asked, what are some types of wellness activities that you would like to see in order to support self-care over the 2021 school year? Some of the responses were increased use of outside spaces, taking fresh air breaks, availability of applications like Calm or Headspace, the desire for relaxation spaces, Zen dens or chill out chambers, time in the day designated for mindfulness and relaxation practices. Then In order to set the foundation for the importance of mental health and how to cope with the stress of leading through a crisis, we engaged two of our PD partners, David Heimowitz and Eric Cusin from #SameHere, to present to the Administrative Cabinet. Their presentation covered the importance of executive leadership to keep mental health at the forefront and offered strategies to support staff, stressing that everyone has experienced some level of stress and trauma over the past year. Through individual conversations with agency executive leadership, we found that the facility staff may not have had the opportunity to participate in the initial thought exchange and that their mental health and wellness needs were not collected. So we created another thought exchange and organized a self-care and wellness workshop presented by the Educator Assistance Program. These opportunities to meet with departments have provided us with different perspectives, needs, strengths, and challenges that each department may have. It has also made clear the importance of having periodic check-ins and to have varied departmental representation on our committee to ensure that the mental health and wellness supports we offer are being communicated to the entire agency. We have offered many programs and supports to districts and Nassau BOCES staff through partnerships with organizations and community resources. One such newly formed partnership with Calm allowed staff to receive a holiday gift of a self-care and mental fitness resource packet. We also formed collegial circles for student support staff, like social worker, counselor, and psychologist circles that meet regularly and are well attended by both district and Nassau BOCES staff members. Numerous presentations on a variety of mental health issues such as trauma and stress management have been offered and attended by district staff and Nassau BOCES as well. These programs have been offered to parents in our special education program with great attendance. It seems the virtual environment is a great way to reach more families. We have connected districts and Nassau BOCES departments to resources for their needs, including social emotional learning plans and instructional materials, recorded workshops, and other resources. The Nassau BOCES programs have started the integration of restorative practice and restorative justice, setting the foundation for more effective and positive adult-student interactions and relationships. And finally, we are excited to be working with Dr. Stephen Dewey, who is moderating a group of outstanding teachers, administrators, and support personnel from across Long Island to create an Introduction to Neuroscience course for high school students. The goal of this course is to create an interest in high school age kids to learn about brain and behavioral sciences, perhaps creating a new generation of neuroscientists, psychiatrists, and behaviorists. With funding, budgeting, and spending projected to increase in the areas of mental and behavioral health, and realizing that the COVID crisis has exponentially increased the need for a variety of mental health and substance abuse supports, our committee understands that our work will continue. The need is apparent, as well as the interest in brain and behavioral health. It seems that the pandemic has removed some of the stigma around mental health. There is an increased desire for self-care and overall health and mental fitness, as well as an acknowledgement that social emotional learning is just as important as academic skill mastery. And so our work continues. Thank you for the opportunity to share our committee's work with you tonight.
Thank you. Any questions? Ms. Coates.
It's not really a question, Audrey, it's more a comment. I know that mental health and behavioral health has been so difficult. And again, you guys, all of the committees, you have monumental tasks in front of you. You know, one of the things that we have as a family personally seen is the increase in, unfortunately, in suicides and overdose. And that, you know, my husband recently went to 3 in 1 week of you know, a few wakes of young people who have overdosed or whatever. So I'm glad to see that this is a part of what you guys have decided to take on, because like you said, it is, I read it down, the need is apparent, and I believe that the pandemic has removed the stigma, and hopefully we'll be heading towards a better place. So thank you.
Any other comments? If not, we thank you all for your work, and we look forward to, Mrs. Langsner. You're on mute, Fran.
You know, when Dr. Dillon said you never let a good crisis go to waste, he was absolutely correct. I mean, this is the kind of work that we had been moving towards, all of it, you know, over time, but certainly living in COVID world has shown us the need to accelerate this process for all of these different committees so that not only for our own agency, but as a model for all of our districts, because we don't know when the next crisis is going to arrive. I heard the other day that another pandemic is not something that is going to be in our imaginations. It could be very real because of the way we interact in the world today. So moving forward with this kind of work and having these models in place to meet any challenges that come our way is amazing. So I thank all of you.
Thank you. You're most welcome.
Right, and just before, I think I'm going to follow up and maybe in a different way than Mr. Schultz expressed it, but that we do want to continue to hear about this so that we feel like we're in the loop and that we don't question, that we are assured, there are no questions, that we are assured that as an agency we are doing, and you are doing what we would hope would be done. And it's just that kind of making sure that we know where we are as an agency. So I do thank everybody who's working on this, and Angela for being Angela. And bravo to you all. So with that, Angela, do you have anything else that you would like to contribute? You're good.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Angela and the entire staff. I mean, this has been quite an undertaking during the pandemic. So we've been moving right along with it. This is the point in time where we had an opportunity and some information to share our work in progress with the board.
Thank you, Dr. Dillon. Okay, moving on. May I have a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Coates. Second, Mrs. Langsner. Is there any discussion? I think somebody wanted to separate. Mr. Wynick?
So I'd like page 9 of the PAR report pulled for a separate vote.
Okay. Okay, so may I have?
I have a question. It's
Sure.
not that specific. It's specific, but not. I don't need an urgent answer. But on the consent agenda, the Toro agreement. It's an agreement that has to do with student teaching. When we are, we have cooperating teachers who accept student teachers, and I'm not clear because we've had others. What benefit accrues to BOCES? It doesn't seem to have in the contracts. Some of our teachers get stipends depending on the university that's sending students? I don't know if any of our teachers get credits at the universities that send teachers. I'd like to just have in general a clarification of what the relationship is between the sending institution and the BOCES when it comes to student teaching.
Ken, can you respond to that, Ken?
Yeah, I sure can. The Toro agreement, Toro is one of the colleges that doesn't offer those fantastic perks to the cooperating teacher or the cooperating administrator, which we really appreciate when they do, such as the college course for no credit or the some rare cases a stipend for the teacher. That's not something they do. But we found in our department engaging in these partnerships, so to speak, does provide benefits for our department overall. in the area of recruiting. We get to see some new teachers in the field, especially in high need areas, bilingual titles, math and science teachers. It also affords us the opportunity to bring new educators into the field with the training, the best practices that we can impart on them. For Toro, this was actually brought about by an ENL teacher who reached out to our principal at CCA. And, one other point is that I want to make is that it is a voluntary and optional arrangement. So no teacher would be, compelled to be a cooperating teacher. We found that a lot of teachers will step up because they want the opportunity to mentor or they're interested in leadership in some way. So they benefit in that type of realm.
Because sometimes the motivation is to get that course credit, but obviously there are benefits beyond that kind of arrangement.
Yeah, the course credit's fantastic when that's part of their policy. And a lot of colleges do that. We engage in agreements with them quickly.
Okay, so with that, I now need a motion to accept the consent agenda, except for page 9 on the PAR. So I'm going to go back and ask for that motion.
So move.
Thank you. Second,
Second.
Ms. Schoen, thank you. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, motion carries. All right, so now I need a motion for page 9 on the PAR. Thank you, Ms. Coates. Second. Mr. Schoen, thank you. Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Wynick?
I think the world of our BOCES staff. They are wonderful individuals, dedicated workers, doing a fantastic job. But, and there's a very big but, we have to understand the economic times of the day. Until the dust settles, we see what the state budget is and understand the economic situation of our component districts. I can't endorse any salary increases at this time. Nassau BOCES does not operate in a vacuum. We have to be cognizant of the real world around us. So therefore, we'd be abstaining on this vote.
Okay. Any other comments? With that, all in favor of PAR page 9?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Okay, Mr. Wynick. Okay, so Joyce, you have the 801. Okay. All right. Next, can I have a motion on additional agenda items? May I have a motion?
So move.
Thank you, Mrs. Coates. Second. Thank you, Mr. Schoen. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Wait 1 second.
What?
I have to double check something on the minutes.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Abstained? Okay, item passes. Moving on to information. Does anybody have any comments, questions on information items? And there is no virtual clipboard tonight, just in case anybody was looking for it. Okay.
Susan? At some point when we're back in person, I'd like to actually sit down with some people and go over the report card just to understand what every item means. I sort of got the gist of it, but I'd like a little more specificity when we can do it easily.
Okay, so noted. Dr. Dillon, were you going to say yes?
You know, Larry, we can, if your schedule permits, we can have some of the executive directors sit down. It's basically a promotional type of situation where, as I understand it, the BOCES got together and had one collective data gathering thing that can be used. For example, when we have our BOCES lobby day, but we can, if you just call the office, call Jessica up, and we'll schedule something so we can do a Zoom meeting and, answer any questions you have with it, or anybody else for that matter.
Okay, it'll be after April 15th, but yeah, I'll do that. Thanks.
May 15th. Isn't it May
Can I ask you
15th?
why, Larry? Okay, Dr. Dillon, Superintendent's report.
Okay, just very briefly, Angela's going to present. We did a survey of vaccinations in the agency for our employees, and I'd like to give you guys an update where we are with vaccinations of our employees. Angela?
Sure. So we sent out a survey to roughly 4,000 email addresses. So some of those email addresses are not people, but just for purposes of understanding the survey, assume around 4,000 employees. And we heard back from 819 of them. So that's, roughly 20% response rate, which is pretty good to give us a grounding of where we are with our vaccinations. Of those, sorry, my piece of paper is on the computer, so I had to find it again. About 512 are either fully or partially vaccinated with plans to be vaccinated. So 62% of the people who responded are partially or fully vaccinated. And another 87 at that time had an appointment scheduled, and another 115 had planned to be vaccinated. Now, this data is as of March 18th. Several people told me that their vaccination status changed between the time they first answered the survey and when we closed it, because people were getting appointments and they were going and getting vaccinated the next day or that weekend. So the numbers have only improved since then. Of note, we have, of the 819 who participated, 89 are not planning to be vaccinated. So that's about 11% of those who responded. So we will need to do a bit of a campaign highlighting the benefits of the vaccination. We do not, at this point, there are no legal requirements for anyone to be vaccinated, but we will be making sure that everyone knows the benefits. Any questions?
Coach?
What about the board members, Angela? You didn't say we did. I know I answered.
You did. I did hear back from 6 of our 9 board members. 5 are fully vaccinated and 1 will be fully vaccinated as of April 2nd. So the majority of the board is vaccinated. I see Mr. K.
Angela, I will have my second shot on Monday, and Barbara wants me to take a distemper shot as well. I'm going to avoid that.
And you do have me in that list, right, Angela?
I do.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that.
Angela,
Yeah,
as of the 31st, I'll have my second vaccine.
perfect. Thank you.
Angela, I don't know if you had me, I'm done.
You're done? Great. Oh, so we're as of, I don't know what I think the second might be our last shot, and then the whole board is fully vaccinated 2 weeks after the last shot.
That's because we qualified.
Michael?
I'm the last one, April 2nd.
No comment.
Well, Angela, thank you very much. And that concludes the report, Susan.
Okay. Joyce, was there any citizen who wanted to be heard?
None at all.
Okay, then moving right along. Old business, is there any old business that anybody wants to comment on? Seeing nobody, any new business before we go to, if there was a foundation? Mr. Wynick.
Yeah, at some point before the organizational meeting in July, I would like a discussion on the Nassau Suffolk School Boards Association, reevaluating and reassessing our membership and what the organization does at this point, other than being, a fraternal order of camaraderie. I would like to know what we get for our dues and whether we should continue being a member of that organization.
All right, we'll put that on
Thank you.
for,
At
as an agenda, and then
yeah,
we'll go on old
There's plenty
business.
of time between now and July.
Right. Mrs. Coates.
And it's really not a board business, but it's about one of our board colleagues. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Ellaby on his reelection.
Right.
Well, thank you very much.
I think he has now breathed a sigh of relief. This is, and Freeport has shown what a bright community they are.
Is that congratulations or condolences?
Whichever, but at least the community is bright. We don't know about you, Ron, if we're sending you our condolences, but the community at least is bright enough. Mr. Schultz.
Can we get an update on candidates for the board?
There are no other candidates other than the 3 seated board members running.
And when is the last day passed?
Yes, March 22nd was the last day.
Would be nice to know that. Okay.
Okay. All right. That being said, Joyce, from now on, just put that on next year's list of making sure the whole board is updated.
Okay.
Yes. My apologies for not realizing that you had all not been informed. Why you should have been unless I did it, but we'll make sure that in the coming years that's just on the daily update of just saying whether or not anybody else has applied for been nominated for a seat on the board. Okay, is there a foundation report? Has there been a meeting?
No.
Okay, so there is no foundation report. All right, then with that, I'm going to ask for a motion to go into executive session to discuss with counsel acquisition, sale, or lease of real property, or the proposed acquisition of securities, a sale or exchange of securities held by such public body, but only when publicity would substantially affect the value thereof. And with that, before I say it, there is no intended vote when we come out of executive session. So there would be no reason for anybody who's viewing us through Zoom to stay, because there will be no other business before us. Yes. So with that, may I have, Larry, did you have anything, or were you moving?
No, I was just moving.
Thank you. So motion to go into executive session by Mr. Greenstein. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Langsner. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Okay, we will be moving into executive session, and I totally forgot to congratulate mea culpa, Joanna Malamant on her promotion. So I'm doing it now, on her promotion to a cabinet position of Assistant Director of Special Ed, on the promotions of Steve Jacobs, Vincent LaRusso, and Lee Thomas Racanova. They have been promoted, and our thanks to Anne Marie Watro on her retirement. She was in the business office and was, when you say not irreplaceable, but irreplaceable, and she is working with her replacement. So many thanks to her for her years of service to us. And with that, we will now go into executive session. And for the rest of you, have a wonderful evening.